Seventh graders, you need your Unit 3 note packet, a pencil, and a calculator ready to roll for our lesson today. Pause the video and go get those materials. In your note packet, open up to 3.3a, multiplying fractions and mixed numbers. You'll see that you have 2 blank sheets. We are going to move this question that says, how do we multiply mixed numbers? We're going to move that over onto the second sheet of our notes. So will you write that question on the second sheet of your notes right up here? How do we multiply mixed numbers? Multiplying fractions? That is even a thing? Yes, it is, Jackie Chan, and we did it as 6th graders. So we are going to recall some of those things that we did with multiplying fractions. Our goal for today is I can multiply. Yes, divide is in there, but that will be another lesson. Positive and negative rational numbers. So something that's new is now we're going to put negatives into our problems. Nothing you need to write in your notes, just let's review here. What do you remember about multiplying fractions from last year? If I have 3/4 times 5/6, I'm taking 3/4 of 5/6. How do I do that? Maybe you're going, Miss Kluver, I remember that it was a little bit easier than adding or subtracting them. That's how I felt. I just said multiply my numerators and multiply my denominators. So let's do that. 3 times 5 is 15. Again, nothing you need to write down. 4 times 6 is 24. Looking at 15/24, can you simplify that? We always ask that question, don't we? Yes, you can divide both by 3, and you're going to get 5/8. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to enter this multiplication problem on your calculator. Do you get the same answer, 5/8? Let's see, I did it on mine and then took a picture. 3/4 times 5/6, 5/8. Yeah, the calculator got to that right away. It got to the simplest form right away. Do you remember this nice step we did last year with multiplying fractions that helped us get to the simplest form a little bit faster so we didn't have to do it at the end? We simplified before we multiplied. So that's what we're going to do again this year, and then we multiply the numerators, we multiply the denominators. In your notes on that first sheet, here on the left-hand side, I'd like you to put those steps down. Underneath how do we multiply fractions, go ahead and write steps. And then the first step, we're going to simplify before we multiply. That means we're going to take every numerator in the problem to every denominator. Because if you think about that, when we're simplifying a fraction, we simplify the numerator and the denominator. We don't simplify the numerators, we simplify the numerator to a denominator. So that's what we're going to do here. Then we're going to multiply the numerators, and we're going to multiply the denominators. Write this down in your notes, 3/5 times 9/4. Now, over in our steps, we're going to start with simplifying before we multiply. We simplify a numerator and a denominator. You've done that for a very long time now, so don't forget that. We don't simplify 2 numerators, no. We simplify a numerator and a denominator. So 3 and 5, do they share a factor outside of 1? No, they do not. Take this 3 to this denominator over here. 3 and 4, do they share a factor outside of 1? No, they do not. Go over to the other numerator, 9 and 4. Do they share a factor? Nothing besides 1. And then this numerator to this denominator. Always a numerator to a denominator. Do they share a factor? No. So now I'm going to multiply my numerators. 3 times 9 is 27. I'm going to multiply my denominators. 5 times 4 is 20. You see that my final answer is improper. I'm going to leave it like that. If it was a real world problem and I was getting an improper fraction for my answer, then I would convert it to a mixed number. Taking one more quick check, 27 and 20, do they share a factor besides 1? No, they do not. Go ahead and write down example 2. 1/8 times 6. What's different about this problem? It has a whole number present, right? But remember, a fraction is really a division problem. So how do I write a whole number as a fraction? I put it over 1. That's how I write it as a fraction, because 6 divided by 1, what does that give me? 6. And that doesn't change any values in this problem. It stays the same. So now I'm going to simplify before we multiply. Take every numerator to every denominator. Can I simplify there? No, it has a 1 in it. Can I simplify here? Nope, they're both 1s. Can I simplify here? Nope, I have a 1 in it. This numerator to this denominator, that's new. Every numerator to every denominator. 6 and 8, can I simplify there? Well, yes, they're both even. So what goes into them? 2. That means I get to divide by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now take your numerators and multiply them together. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 1 is 4. You might go, Miss Clipper, well, why is my answer smaller? Normally when I'm multiplying, I'm used to getting a larger number for my answer. And I go, yeah, we are used to that. But here we're taking part of 6. Remember, of in math means multiply. You're taking part of a number. Of course your answer is going to be smaller. Here is example 3. 4/15 times 21/32. We're going to start with simplifying before we multiply. So take every numerator to every denominator. That means the numerator's got to check in twice with the denominator. 4 and 15, do they share a factor? No, they do not. 4 and 32? Yes, they do. 4 is a common factor that they share. So 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. 32 divided by 4 gives me 8. Now this numerator gets to go with the denominators, so 21 and 8, do they share a factor? Nope. How about 21 and 15? You might go, I'm not sure, Mrs. Clover. Will you have your calculator to help you check? Or always check 3 and 9, because the 3 and 9 factors, they can kind of tend to trick us every once in a while. 3 goes into both of these, so that is a factor I can pull out. 21 divided by 3 is 7, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now I'm ready to multiply my numerators. 1 times 7 is 7. 5 times 8 is 40. So 7/40 is my final answer. Let's go ahead and let's do another example. Because you know what? We haven't brought negatives into the game here yet. So let's do that now. Now you remember, right? When we are multiplying and we have negatives involved, we look at the signs of the numbers. If they agree, the product is positive. If they disagree, the product is negative. So maybe you want to start with focusing on the signs. When you see a negative, go right away. Okay, here I see a negative. This doesn't have any sign in front of it, so the default is positive. Do the signs agree? No, they do not. So my answer is going to be negative. Maybe you want to write a little note over on the left-hand side. Signs agree equals positive. Signs disagree, what does it equal? Equals negative. Give yourself that reminder for multiplying positive and negative numbers, okay? So now we're going to simplify before we multiply. So 20 and 7, do they share a factor? Nope. Remember, I take the numerator to every denominator. So 20 and 15, do they share a factor? They do. I can divide both of those by 5. So 20 divided by 5 is 4. 15 divided by 5 is 3. I haven't focused on this numerator yet, so I have to bring that to my two denominators. 8 and 3? Nope. How about 8 and 7? Nope. So now numerator times numerator, that's going to give me 32 over denominator times denominator, 21. So I have a negative 32 as my final answer. And it's negative because the negatives in my problem, there's only one negative in my problem, the signs don't agree. They are not both negative. Let's do our next example here. Ready? Write it down. Negative 18 times negative 5/12. Notice here we're seeing that invisible multiplication. The parenthesis is being used to isolate this negative, and it's being used to represent multiplication. There's invisible multiplication in there. I have a whole number, so be thinking about that as well. I'm going to go to my negatives right away, and I'm going to circle them. I have two negatives. So do the signs of the problem agree? They do. So what does that mean my product is going to be? Positive. Maybe you want to put a positive over there to help remind you of that. How do I write a whole number as a fraction? I put it over 1. Maybe you want to rewrite this problem. So we have negative 18 over 1 times negative 5/12. I know my answer is going to be positive because my signs agree. So I'm just going to ignore those for right now. Before I multiply my numerators and my denominators, I'm going to simplify. So simplify before you multiply. Take every numerator to every denominator. Can I simplify here? Nope. Can I simplify here? Yeah, they're both even, so I know 2 goes into them, but there's a greater factor that they share. They share 3 as well, right? So if they share 2 and 3, that means they share what factor? Think your divisibility rules. 6. So I can divide both of these by 6. Ms. Clover, what if I didn't see that right away? What if I chose 2 and 3? That's fine. You're just going to have a little bit more simplifying before you multiply to do. 18 divided by 6 is 3. 12 divided by 6 is 2. This numerator to this denominator, can't simplify there, and then there's a 1 over here, so I know I'm done. Now I can go numerator times numerator, which is going to give me 15, denominator times denominator, halves. So my final answer is 15 halves. I know it's positive because my signs agree. I'm done. We just multiplied fractions, positive ones and negative ones, using a lot of what we already know how to do, reminding ourselves of that. Let's go to that next page in our notes and let's work on mixed numbers. So you already wrote this title on that second page. How do we multiply mixed numbers? Let's go ahead and let's put our steps down. Now the only thing that's different is we have a mixed number. Remember, mixed number is the sum of a whole number and a proper fraction. So this 3 wholes is really, don't write this down, 6 halves plus the 1/2 that I already have, right? So we want to make sure that, gosh, we got addition, we got division, we got multiplication. We don't want to break the order of operations. So if we change them into improper fractions first, we are not going to ignore the rules of order of operations. So that's what we're going to do first. Then we're going to simplify before we multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. Underneath the question that you wrote, go ahead and write these steps right now. If you're not ready to go on, pause the video. Here's our first example with multiplying mixed numbers. I think I forgot to number our other examples, so I apologize about that. You can add those example numbers in. 3 1/2 times 2 2/3. We are going to first change these to improper fractions, so we're going to do the Texas. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 7 halves times, do the Texas, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 is 8, 8/3. Now we're going to simplify before we multiply. Take every numerator to every denominator. Can I simplify here? How about here? Nope. Can I simplify here? Nope. The only factor they share is 1. How about here? Yes, they're both even. I know 2 goes into them for sure. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now I'm ready to multiply my numerators. 7 times 4 is 28. 1 times 3 is 3. We're going to leave our final answer improper. Improper fractions are much easier to work with than mixed numbers. If this was a real-world problem, then we would change it back to a mixed number. Go to the next example. This is example 2. Negative 8 3/4 times negative 1 4/7. Notice the parentheses here are isolating the negative and they're representing that invisible multiplication in there. Notice I have negatives this time. I'm going to circle those. I'm going to ask myself, do the signs of these numbers agree? They do. They're both negative. They agree. So that means my product is going to be positive. I'm going to put a plus over there to help remind myself that I've already looked at that. Next, I'm going to do the Texas. So 8 times 4 is 32, plus 3 is 35/4. So this is a negative 35/4 times, do the Texas over here, 1 times 7 is 7, plus 4 is 11. So times a negative 11/7. Now we're going to simplify before we multiply. I'm just going to ignore my minuses. I already have what my final answer is going to be over there. 35 and 4, can I simplify there? Nope. 35 and 7, can I simplify there? Yes, I can. They share 7 as a factor. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 35 divided by 7 is 5. 11 and 1, well, there's 1, Mrs. Kluver, so you're done. 11 and 4, no, they do not. So I have negative 5/4 times negative 11 over 1. That's what I've simplified it to be. So I'm going to go numerator times numerator. 5 times 11 is 55, and 4 times 1 is 4. And I know that my final answer is going to be positive because my signs agree. So 55/4. Positive is the default. I can erase that. There's my final answer. Let's do one more mixed number problem together. So that would be example 3. So this is example 3. I'll read that one more time. 5 1/4 times negative 9 1/7. I'm going to focus. I see a negative, so I'm going to circle that. I'm going to ask myself, do the signs of these numbers agree? This is a positive, this is a negative. They do not, so I know my final product is going to be negative. I have mixed numbers, so I'm going to change those into improper fractions. I'm going to do the Texas. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21/4, times, do the Texas over here. 9 times 7 is 63, plus 1 is 64, so this is a negative 64/7. Again, you can ignore the negative if you want because we already put what our final answer is going to be. Now, before we multiply our numerators and then our denominators, we're going to simplify. So simplify before you multiply. Take every numerator to every denominator. 21 and 4? No. 21 and 7? Yeah, those 21s can be a little tricky sometimes, can't they? That's why knowing our basic multiplication facts is really beneficial. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. 21 divided by 7 is 3. Every numerator to every denominator. So I got to go over to this numerator. Oh, there's a 1. You're done in the denominator. 64 and 4. Well, they're both even, so I know 2 goes into them. But there's a bigger factor that they share. They share 4. 64 divided by 4 is 16. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Now I'm ready to multiply. So we have 3 times 16. That's going to give me 48. And 1 times 1 is 1. And I know that this is a negative 48 over 1. But when I look at this, what can I do? 48 divided by 1 is what? 48. So my final answer, I already put my sign there to help me out. Negative 48.
Seventh graders, it's now time to practice multiplying positive and negative rational numbers. Your assignment is 3.3a. You will find it in the Unit 3 folder on Schoology. Remember, when it comes to working with mixed numbers, you're going to make them improper first. Multiplying positive and negative rational numbers, we're going to simplify before we multiply. We're going to multiply our numerators. Then we're going to multiply our denominators. Remember to leave answers, your final answers, as simplified improper fractions. Read those directions very carefully on your assignment. We'll see ya.